Hi everyone, June Raven Romero here. So this next video, I want to say I hope you enjoy it, but it's difficult to find joy in a story like the one you're going to hear. But to preface, I was able to snag an interview with Gabriela Amaya Cruz, a good friend of mine and local Miami trans woman, who was one of the 36 individuals arrested by Miami-Dade police on July 29th of this year. They were arrested during a Black Lives Matter protest that was geared toward transgender women of color. And I was able to get her side of the story. Now, the video is a bit long, but I did want to give her room and time to share her testimony. And there were questions that I probably should have asked that I did not, in order to preserve her experience as best as possible and not agitate her memories or agitate her feelings around the events. Also, a couple of things that I wanted to clarify before you actually watch the video. When I was conducting the interview with Gabby, I was unaware about some information that I will share with you now. Apparently, the Prison Rape Elimination Act, or PREA, is not applicable here because PREA, I learned through a friend of ours, Chaplain Tyler, who contacted somebody at the Miami chapter of the ACLU. PREA is only subject to administrative enforcement, meaning an individual cannot bring a case citing PREA against an institution or a correctional facility. It must only be addressed internally via the administration. I also learned that the Human Rights Ordinance of Miami-Dade County essentially does not extend protections to inmates or those in custody, which is a rather devious loophole, in my opinion. And so I just wanted you to know those things before you watch the interview. Thank you all so much for the attention you've given the channel. We made over 200 views in less than 48 hours on my first video, and I have somewhere around 22 subscribers, so I'm so excited. Thank you guys so much for your support, and I look forward to making the next video and pushing out some more content. Again, don't forget to subscribe, like all my things, and follow us on social media. I will provide all the tags and the handles in the video description. I will also be providing Gabby's fundraising GoFundMe link so that you guys, if you so choose, can make your way there and donate to her GoFundMe account. Thank you so much. Gabriela Amaya Cruz, welcome to the
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me. I know that the subject matter we're going to discuss isn't the easiest, the most comfortable, the most fun, or anything like that. So I really, really appreciate you being on here. I guess I'll just go ahead and introduce yourself, whatever you'd like to say, who you are and what you do and how any of that is relevant to what, we're going to discuss.
Right. Well, you already said my name. My name is Gabriela Amaya Cruz. I'm a queer trans artist here in Miami, Florida. I do different forms of art, mostly performing arts. My performing arts name is Lady Paraíso. My pronouns are she, her, hers, exclusively. And yeah, I'm just really happy to be here with you, talking to you about something that like you said, it's not so pleasant to talk about, but I do feel like it is very necessary to talk about these types of issues because life is not, I say this a lot, and my mom used to tell me this all the time, life is not rainbows and butterflies all the time. There are times where we do need to talk about the harsh truth about what's really going on in the world. And especially as trans people, we need to share specific stories. So yeah, it's important to talk about not only the good, but also the bad.
Yeah, so for clarification, I have invited Gabby on the transcript because Gabby is one of several protesters who was arrested. So on the 29th of July, there was a protest held near downtown Miami, and there were 36 arrests made, right? 36 arrests were made. Of those, many of those folks are trans and GNC people protesting that day. And Gabby happened to be one of the trans women booked on that day. And Gabby has shared her story along with a friend of ours, Jay Bucci, quite publicly. She's been picked up. The story's been picked up by the Herald, Miami Herald. It was picked up by Planet Transgender. It was picked up by Metro, Co-UK. And the stories, so, you know, it's caught on a little bit. But I wanted to interview Gabby because I wanted to give her an opportunity to come on the transcript and really lay out the details and the facts of that day and what she can recount from her own memory and in her own words, because oftentimes all these things get convoluted in, you know, in communication and sometimes, yeah. So Gabby, I guess just go ahead and tell me about that day, your perspective of things, what happened.
Okay. So, you know, I hadn't been to any of the Black Lives Matter movements since the movement began, but I was doing a lot of behind the scenes work. I have been doing a lot of fundraising, organizing, and I've been doing a lot of that, but I hadn't attended any protests. And then I saw that there was going to be a memorial for all the Black trans women that have been murdered this year. And I was like, you know what? It feels right. I need to go to this. I need to, as a trans woman, I totally my heart breaks every single time another one of us dies and gets killed savagely. So I wanted to show my condolences, my respect to these women, simply by attending. When I get there, I go with one of my really good friends, Viola Putex. She's also a drag performer here in Miami, Florida. She and I went to this protest, and we met there with a couple of our other trans friends. Chaplain Tyler was there, Jay Bucci was there, and you know, a couple of other people were there. So seeing a lot of familiar faces really made me feel really good and more comfortable. Since the last protest that I ever went to was the one for Donald Trump, in 2017. So it has been a while. So this one was obviously much smaller. So when I
Just
get
to
there,
clarify, it was a protest against Donald Trump assuming the presidency, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Gabby is not one of those elusive transgender Trump supporters.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Though they exist, and I'm not knocking them
They do
entirely
exist.
right now, Gabby is not one of those individuals.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So when I got there, it was really nice to see a lot of familiar faces. And then I saw some of the organizers talking about them wanting to do a little march and then come back to the Torch of Friendship to do the memorial for the Black trans women. A lot of them gave us the option of staying back in the Torch of Friendship, and then if we didn't feel comfortable marching and stuff. I do definitely believe there is a lot of power in marching and in standing your ground, and numbers definitely matter 100%. So I was given the option of either staying back or walking in this protest. My Viola was very comfortable going to march. She's like, I've been to marches before, it's gonna be fine, just come with me, as well as Jay Bucci. They were all just assuring me that if anything were to happen, that I would have been protected. Not just my friends, but also the organizers. They were very on top of making sure that the trans women, the non-binary people were protected no matter what. So I was very excited to know that, I felt protected, I felt safe to march. So we marched about, I want to say 4 or 5 blocks maybe. In the rain, it was raining, it was pouring down on us. Then the rain stopped, and then we noticed that cop cars were getting behind us. And then there were I think 2 cop cars behind us. And then one of the cops on the microphone goes, "Let us get in front of you so that we can protect you, so that we can protect you against the traffic." The organizers were screaming, "Get on the sidewalk, get on the sidewalk." We all got on the sidewalk. The cops got in front of us and blocked all exits from the front and from the back. We were literally in the middle with no way out to run. If you didn't run immediately before they stopped us, there was no way you were getting out of that.
So I've been to a couple of these protests myself, and I witnessed while I was there what I can only describe as cops employing, divisive tactics, literally, in order to split a crowd and make them more manageable, in essence disrupting the protest and disrupting the movement that day. Is that what happened to you that day?
Absolutely. There was definitely, there were also some undercover cops marching with us. And a lot of them were saying, like, if anything happens, come to us, we'll protect you. Then once they kind of like barricaded all of us into one space, that's when their cop mode came out. That's when they were like there was so many cops there. They definitely outnumbered all of us. And they used excessive force on a lot of them, especially the the ones that they recognized. And they basically said, like, everyone here, book them all. They're all going to jail. When I heard that, I had never been to jail before. My heart dropped. I was like, fuck. That's the first thing that came up to my head. I was just like continuously saying, fuck, 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 fuck. I had the intentions of running. However, I did see, when I was looking for Viola, I looked on the floor. Viola was tackled down by two huge police officers. Viola's very thin, very, very thin. There was no need for two police officers to be on top of her, tackling her. They also tackled a lot of other of the organizers there. My plan was to grab Viola, grab Jay, grab the people that I was with, and run. That was my plan. That's what I wanted to do. But I realized that it was definitely way too late for me to be doing that. It was just too late. There was no way that I was going to be able to run. So they basically just put us all by a wall. As they were putting us by the wall, and there was an older protester there. She's someone that goes to the protest. She's very committed to the Black Lives Matter movement. She is also a Black woman. They knocked her down, and she was really hurt. And we were saying, she needs the ambulance. She needs the ambulance. She was on the floor, literally right in front of us as we were on the wall, not being able to move, not being able to do anything. And we were like, she needs the ambulance. She needs to be helped. It took forever for them. Whatever. Fast forward, we went. They took us all into the cop cars. The person that I was with also had never been arrested before, but they were one of the organizers. So they were really worried too because it was our first time. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what was going to happen. So when we were in the downtown holding center, we weren't treated badly. They were actually treating us, normal. They weren't talking to us rudely. They weren't talking to us like we were criminals or anything. So we were in that holding center for about, I want to say 2 hours until they decided to take all of us to TGK.
That's Garner Guilford Knight Correctional Facility, right?
Right. Once I got to TGK, that's when things started to get really, really dark for me. So far, I hadn't had any bad encounters with any of the cops that I was dealing with, other than them knocking down all of the protesters. When I got there, I can immediately already tell that there was going to be some sketchy things going on. I knew it. I had a feeling. I just felt it in my body. So when I got there, they put us through this metal detector. Then they put us in this room where we were going to get our, it was like they were trying to see how healthy we were. So there was 3 rows. First row was women, second row was men, Third row was also men. When I go into the medical center area, before they did the booking process, they put me with the women, and then I noticed that some of the cops were like staring at me. So one of the cops goes, "You go to the second row," meaning go to the man row, right? 5 minutes later, another cop comes and goes, "You're not supposed to be sitting here. Sit in the front row." Okay, like, um, so we were in that room. We're gonna ask something.
Sorry, yes, you were saying, Gabby. So there was a point at which you were, of course, you were read, perceived as female, and then things were going that direction, and then there was an interruption to that process.
Absolutely, yeah. Many times, actually, many times, like I noticed that some of the cops were looking at me and they're like, and we all had face masks on. I had no makeup on that day, but I was obviously very high femme presenting. But I didn't have a mask, so they couldn't clock me as much as they would have if I didn't have my mask on.
Sure.
So that's why they were going back and forth, back and forth. I was like in the corner of my eye, I was looking to the side, and I was noticing that cops were definitely talking about me, and they honestly didn't know what to do with me. So after they took all of, like, after they saw, like, they took our temperature and all that stuff, that's when the booking process began, and that's when I feel things were starting to get really, like, nasty. Before they took us into that room, there was these two officers, they were males, and they were looking, and they're making it very obvious that they were laughing at me. They were just being very, they were laughing. I even heard one of them say, "What the fuck?" Like, just really, like, making it so obvious that they're making me, it made me so uncomfortable. So these two cops grab my belongings and they go, "Cruz, come here." A lot of the times they were referring to me as Cruz, which is my last name, which I appreciated, because unfortunately my dead name is still in all of my legal paperwork.
Mine as well.
So
This is the
so
case
I
for a
was,
lot of transgender individuals because the process and the costs associated with changing our names and gender markers and all official documentation can be long, drawn out, arduous, expensive, inaccessible. So many of us have still have our what we call our dead names on our identification cards and documentation.
right. So they did it. These two specific officers that I was talking about, they didn't call me Cruz. They called me by my dead name, and they screamed it out. And of course, that makes me really uncomfortable. So they're like, "Dead name, come here." So I got up, went to, it was like this little hallway before, like, where they took your mugshots and all that stuff. And in that hallway, they pointed at my wig and they said, "Does that come off?" And I'm like, "Yes, it comes off, but please let me keep it on." I knew my hair under there was looking a hot, hot mess because it had been in a wig for so long. And plus, I feel like wigs give me I feel very secure when I'm wearing a wig. And I feel like it definitely makes me feel a lot more feminine opposed to when I'm not. So I was like, "Please, please let me keep the wig on." They're like, "You can either take it off in here or we can take it off for you." And then I mean, obviously they didn't give me a choice. So I took off the wig, and not to be that girl, but this was a really expensive wig. They were treating it with no respect at all, which I guess that's like very like minor. Who cares about that? But it's still my belongings. Like, I would expect them to treat it with a little more respect. So after my wig was removed, that's when they decided to take my mugshot. So I took my mugshot. Then they were like, "Take off all your jewelry." I had a lot of jewelry on, so I took off all of my jewelry. Um, and then both of those male officers were like, "We're going to begin the frisking process." And I'm like, I feel more comfortable if women officers were to frisk me, please. And I honestly, I did not think it was going to be a problem. You know, I was like, I thought they were just going to be like, okay, like, sure. Um, but no, they were blatantly like, you have a dick. They pointed at my crotch. They're like, you have a dick. You're still a man. We are going to do this frisking. I was in disbelief and I stepped back and I was like, in my head, I was like, I'm not going to take this. I'm not going to take them talking to me like this. I refuse, you know? Yes, I'm in jail. Yes, I'm locked up. But I still expect you to treat me with respect, you know? So I stepped back and I was like, no, I am a transgender woman and I want to be treated like a woman. June, when I tell you that the faces that they had on were like, I swear it read, if we were not in here right now, I would beat the shit out of you. That's the facial expression that they gave me. They were very upset with how I responded. And they go, you're being extremely difficult. Go back to the wall. So I went to the wall. And then as I'm going back to the wall, I see a female officer walking towards us. And then she goes, what's going on here? And then the two male officers were like, he's being extremely difficult. He says that he's a woman, but he still has a dick. Like, super uncomfortable. I was very uncomfortable when I was here. And also, there was a room full of people. People were literally listening to what was going on. So I was extremely humiliated. The female officer actually, you know, I feel like at that moment she kind of came to my rescue because she was like, come here, baby, I'll frisk you, don't worry, like, I got you. In my head, I was like, great, you know? So she did my frisking process, and then she took me to change into my my orange jumpsuit. She took all of my clothes, whatever, and then she was actually being very helpful. She's like, look, what we're gonna do is I want you to sign off a waiver saying that what your identity is. And I did just that. I wrote, I am a transgender woman. I want to be treated as a woman and I want to be held with the women. My pronouns are she, her. That's exactly what I wrote and I remember it perfectly. So I feel like if I wouldn't have spoken up, they would have definitely put me in with in the male holding center, which I was very, very not okay with. I mean, I don't even have to tell you, you know how unsafe that can be and how unsafe that, like I would have felt so unsafe. So what they did was there was a section where they had the men, and then there was a section where they had the women, and then there was a section where where it was like another clinical, like little clinical space. So what they did was they put me in this clinical space in the first row, and then 2 rows behind were all male inmates that I think were there for, not for protesting, but they've been there for like, I think about like 3 days. I think I overheard them say that they've been in there for like 3 days, 5 days. And then in front were like the medical professionals, and then on the side there was a police officer. So I was there by myself, not talking to anyone. And then they decided to bring the other female inmates in to where I was in the little medical center because there was no room because it was packed to the rim. It was so packed. So the women were in there. I was housed with the women. Luckily, I felt very fortunate to be with the women. And the women that I was held with were also protesters. So that gave me more peace of mind. That gave me more stability, and I felt more safe, and I didn't feel so like I felt a little more like comfortable. So so those of you who don't know, I have what's called a disability called ectrodactyly, which means that I'm born with less fingers on my hands. As you guys can see, my fingers don't, they can't physically go straight. My hands are, my fingers are just crooked. And the only thing that I can put straight is this thumb, but every other finger is just very, is crooked. something that they didn't mention at them in the Miami Herald post was that not only am I trans, but I'm also disabled. When it came down to fingerprinting when it came down to fingerprinting, oh my God, they had no mercy on my hands. They were extremely aggressive with my hands because they have to grab your hand and they have to put it on the scanner themselves. This hand in particular, I got an operation to kind of open them up a little more. This hand is my strong hand. I'm a lefty, so this is my strong hand. You can move it, you can do whatever you want to this hand. This hand, on the other hand, is very, very sensitive. So when they were doing this hand, I noticed that they were using a lot of force on my strong hand. I was like, oh my God, like I hope they don't use like force on this hand. And they did. They used so much force, and it hurt so much. And I had to tell them, like, excuse me, please be a little more sensitive because my hands, I have a disability. She was sensitive for like the first 5 seconds, and then she began to be more aggressive because she was getting frustrated because, one, I didn't have all my fingers. Two, my fingers weren't straight, so they didn't scan properly. We had to do it several times. And she was just being very aggressive, and it was uncomfortable. So once we finally got it, I went back to where I was sitting. And then a bunch of times they were screaming out my dead name, back and forth. They were just screaming my dead name. And I honestly felt really, really invisible at that point. They removed my wig. They took off my bra. They took off all of my jewelry, things that just genuinely make me feel like myself, and they make me feel comfortable. They're definitely like a safety blanket for me. My hair was a mess. My body didn't look how I wanted it to look. They were screaming out my dead name. They were saying he, him, Mr. Cruz. Like, I was, I was blessed to be around like other protesters, but I felt like I was like my existence was a joke, and that my what I'm fighting for in this world, which is to be simply seen as a woman, was not even taken into account. It really hurt. It really sucked, and I really had to put on a really strong face to make it through because my feelings were just so hurt, and I was so humiliated, and I didn't feel like myself. So sorry, I'm getting a little emotional.
It's okay, Gabby. You can take your time. I'm so sorry you had to live that experience. And all I can say is that I'm happy that I see you here and before me doing well enough and beautiful and able to tell about it. And also, of course, I'm relieved that I understand that you've taken up a case, or you're attempting to take up a case with the American Civil Liberties Union of South Florida, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the ACLU here, the chapter of the ACLU here in Miami, has agreed to represent you. Is that the case?
I don't think I've gotten in contact with the ACLU actually.
Oh, okay.
Now that I think of it, no, I haven't I don't think they've reached out to me. No.
Oh, I apologize. I had read that in one of the reports. I can't remember whether it was. I think it was the Metro. I think it was reading it in the story in the Metro that they mentioned.
Maybe Jay got in contact with them, but they haven't reached out to me. No.
Wow, so that's kind of important, Gabby, because do you know, Gabby, that that Miami-Dade County has a human rights ordinance in place that deems it illegal, that makes it illegal for people to be discriminated against in spaces of public accommodation, jails being one of those?
Yes, I do know that. I am still hooked on the point that if I were to take this into court, I feel like because my name is still my dead name and my gender marker hasn't been changed, I feel like I would lose this case for some reason.
And this happens all the time. You know, I've been discriminated against in healthcare settings. So, and that is according to the Human Rights Ordinance of Miami-Dade County. That is illegal. The ordinance states it is illegal to discriminate on the basis of gender identity or sexual orientation. And given that description of the law, I feel like this is obviously an example of egregious discrimination against you, because even if you had made it into there and you have all these old documents that reflect somebody who you are not, there has to be a system in place, because a lot of trans people I don't have my documentation changed. If I arrived at TGK, I would technically have to be booked as a male.
Right. But what I was saying is that it blows my mind that people on the outside assume that the inmates are the ones that are the bad guys. They're the ones that are causing all the commotion, and the cops are the heroes. The cops are the ones that keep the streets safe and out of trouble and all of that. When in reality, when you're in their ball court and when you're in their field, they do the most unspeakable things to you. They go complete, because June, to be honest, this is completely them going out of their way to make me feel bad and to make me feel unseen, and that they don't care how I identify, that because of my genitalia, that they're going to see me as a man. This is complete, like, I'll give you an example. I just had one of my, I have another court hearing again, but I had a court hearing with a judge, right? The judge completely asked me, she was like, hey, how would you like us to identify you? How would you like us to address you? I'm like, my name is Gabriela Cruz. I want to be addressed by she, her. She got it perfectly. She was like, okay, Miss Cruz, she was like, perfect. So people choose to go out of their way to make trans folks feel bad about their identity. So,
and on top of that, it's even beyond that, these are individuals that work for a state system. It's a state funded, it's a government system, a government entity, right? And it's difficult to imagine that these people have just not heard of trans people in their entire lives. You know, that they're missing the zeitgeist, they're missing all of the media and all of the attention and all of the stories being run about transgender individuals. I find that hard to believe. And so I do believe that they are making deliberate attempts to dehumanize transgender individuals when they get the opportunity. So I believe that is what happened to you. And on top of that, would you say, Gabby, that the cops present at the scene of the arrest employed deliberately deceptive tactics to ultimately arrest you all?
Absolutely. We were peacefully protesting. We abide by when they said get on the sidewalk. There was absolutely no reason for them at that point, once we abide by what they told us, to come out of their cars, block both sides so that we can't get out, tackle several of us, have a Black woman, an elderly woman at that, on the ground crying for medical attention because she was severely hurt. They went out of their way to try to scare us so that we wouldn't be doing these things again. They want to try to silence our voices. They want to try to silence our beliefs and stuff. And that is something that I feel like that should give us more of a fuel to continue doing the work that we're doing. Because we will not accommodate to discrimination against Black folks. We will not accommodate discrimination against trans women. We will not allow transphobia. We're not going to allow this anymore. You know, the George Floyd incident was just one tiny little thing compared to all of the terrible things that they've done to Black people historically. And I feel like because of what happened to George Floyd, may he rest in peace, Black people were just like, enough is enough. You know, and it's unfortunate that they're trying to not even try to see change in the world, you know.
I have to believe, maybe I'm eternally optimistic, but I have to believe there's a case here, regardless of your documentation and regardless of your ability to change your documentation in time, because that's neither here nor there. A lot of trans people do not, and that should not be the determining factor for whether we get treated, with dignity or not.
After I was held there till about 4 a.m, then they started releasing a couple of us. I was fortunate enough to be in the first group of people that were released. So they took us up to where they were gonna give us back our belongings and stuff. And one of the so when they were giving everybody back their stuff, when it was my turn to go to grab my things, they opened my bag with all the things that I had in there, and they looked at my clothes. And the police officer, she started laughing, and she's like, "You're coming for my look, ha 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 ha," like trying to make a joke. And I was like, "Oh, like she's peeking with me, I guess. Like, should I go along with this?" Like, I'm like, okay, like I just like, haha, like she's like, "This is what you're wearing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is what I came in with." And she's like, "Oh, no. I'm absolutely not gonna let you leave like this because this is women's clothing and you're not a woman. So I'm gonna give you these clothes that they claim that is unisex." Girl, there's nothing unisex about that. It is literally basketball shorts and an oversized white t-shirt. That is not unisex. They forced me to wear these clothing because she, and I will quote her, she said, "I am not going to be embarrassed by when I take you down by what you choose to wear." She's embarrassed. She's the one that's going to be, humiliated. Like I found that completely baffling, and I was just like, I don't want to be in here longer than I have to. I'm already I'm basically at the exit. So what I did was put the clothes that I came in with under my unisex clothes. Like I put that over what I was wearing. And when I was let out, it was beautiful to see other folks there that weren't arrested, but they were part of the protesting group, as well as my really, really close friends. But at that point, I was chewed up, wrinkled up, thrown into the garbage, picked up again, thrown back on the ground, and torn and broken. And I felt really, I hate using this word because I never like it to determine me, but I genuinely felt defeated. I felt like they won, and I felt like they were in all their right to make a mockery out of my identity.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gabby. I hope that this interview reaches somewhere. I'm going to push it everywhere, obviously, because I know people are interested in the story, and I thank you so much for coming on and telling the full scope of it.
I thank you for allowing me to have a platform to be able to verbally express the incidents that happened. I really want this story to be reached out to as many people as possible, for the sake of future trans people that could potentially get held in a detention center. It blows my mind, June, that literally all we're asking for is common respect, basic respect. We're just asking to be treated with a grain of respect. That's all we're asking for. And that still is too much, and that's still seen as no, we're not going to give you that, And honestly, the timing couldn't have been weirder because I'm dealing with this case, but I'm also in the works of my facial feminization surgery, which is happening in September. And we were actually going to talk about that right now. I was fortunate enough that my insurance and my job were able to collab together and have my facial feminization surgery covered in full. That is 100% a blessing. That is something that I definitely consider myself to be very privileged because you know very well that that is a very expensive surgery that is very not, it's not reachable to a lot of us. So I feel very fortunate that my insurance was able to pay um, for my surgery on its own. However, anything after that is completely on me, which is, you know, obviously it's not as much as it would be to pay for FFS and my recovery. But yes, right now I am in the works of having a GoFundMe. You have this insane like amount of things that you have to get, and the last thing I want to be worrying about when I'm healing is finances. That's something I don't want to be dealing with at that very moment. Any other moment, like I can handle it. You know, I'm like a big girl. Like I'll be able to. I'm a hustler. Like I fight. Like I go out of my way to make my own money. But I'm literally gonna be like recovering. I won't be able to do much for myself. So I won't be able to work. And I do want to have the finances to anything that has to get covered, you know, it does get covered. So yeah, that's what my GoFundMe is. And I can't believe that I'm literally 17 days away from this surgery. Like, it's
I
crazy.
know. So we're going to make a push. So anybody watching, please, please, please share and contribute. Yes, because any small amount counts. And to her GoFundMe, to Gabriela Amaya Cruz's GoFundMe account, fundraiser. I will be putting the information in the description box in the YouTube video, and I will be attaching the GoFundMe link to any social media posts that I make. Thank you so much, Gabby. I'm sorry you had to relive it, but I appreciate you doing that for the transcript and for everybody else who is watching and who wants to watch and who wants to get a full narrative of this story, because I know people want it. And I know that people want it, and it sounds terrible, but they want it to judge. You know, some folks even want it to judge. And I just wanted to have your full testimony out there so they can judge for themselves if they so choose.
Right.
Whether they think this was an appropriate way to go about detaining folks, right?
Right, absolutely.
So thank you so much, Gabby. I appreciate it. You look
Yeah.
beautiful. You are beautiful. You are, I mean, you're an insane
You
force.
too, girl.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you're part of our community in South Florida, and we treasure you and we love you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, June. It was honestly a pleasure to talk to you, and I hope that once COVID is all done, we can like finally see each other. Like we can have a little kiki and just like, you know, catch up face to face.
I already know that our community has something enormous planned. Whether nobody's planning it, I'm sure. But I know that we're gonna have an enormous kiki when this is all over.
Oh, absolutely.
So thank you. I listen, and I wish you just peace of mind, tranquility, and faith. I know you don't lack in any of that, but I wish it to you even more now, because I know that, you know, within a month or two's time, all this will be behind you and you'll be recovering from your FFS surgery happily.
Well, thank you so much, June. I appreciate you having me, and I love you so much, okay?
I love you too. Have a good night, Gabby.
We'll talk soon. Bye.
Yes.